Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Dunn, and I am the Executive Director of the New Haven Pride Center, and I use he, him pronouns. I'm excited to welcome you all to today's program, which is the second panel of Pride New Haven 2022. Before we begin, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the land on which we are hosting this event. Even though we are virtual, all of us are in physical space somewhere. So the New Haven Pride Center was founded and operates on the traditional lands of the Mohegan, the Mashantucket Pequot, the Eastern Pequot, the Shattucoat, the Golden Hill Pawcasset, the Niantic, and the Quinnipiac peoples. Please take a moment and acknowledge and honor the Native people whose lands you may occupy and the history of the place that you are in. To learn more about Native lands, you can go to native-land.ca, which is right there. Also, before we begin, I do want to say that this event is part of Pride New Haven 2022. Pride New Haven runs through the end of this week, ending on Sunday. With over 25 events, there's literally something for everyone. So we hope you'll join us throughout the week, and you can learn more by visiting newhavenpridecenter.org. I'd like to thank all of the incredible sponsors that make Pride New Haven possible, which include Gotham City Cafe, Healthcare Advocates International, Black Rock Social House, Partners Cafe, Circle Care Center, the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven, the City of New Haven, and the State of Connecticut. Today's program is a continuation of an ongoing series that was originally started by our Director of Youth Services, Ala Ochimare, about 3 years ago, which is Black Queer Feminism. And today's program is sponsored specifically by CT Humanities. So with that, I will stop talking and bring to the stage our incredible moderator, Sun. Good morning, Sun.
Grand afternoon.
Yeah, afternoon.
It is 12 o'clock. Welcome. So today on this grand afternoon, we will be centering Black queer voices. Give it up for our panelists and everyone who is joining us today. So our beloved Bell Hooks once stated, in order for me to engage in a revolutionary struggle for collective Black self-determination, I have to engage feminism because that becomes the vehicle by which I project myself as a female into the heart of the struggle. But the heart of the struggle does not begin with feminism. It begins with the understanding of domination and a critique of domination in all of its forms. And so today we have amazing panelists with us. I would like to welcome them in so they can have a chance to introduce themselves. Come on in. Welcome again to Pride New Haven 2022 panel on Black queer feminism, presented again by New Haven Pride Center. And again, today we have these amazing beings. So if you all can just take the time out to tell us about yourself, how do you identify, and whatever you would like the world to know about you.
I can go.
Janice, you can start. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hey everyone, Janice. Pronouns she, her producer here at the New Haven Pride Center. There's another question.
If that's all you want to tell us right now.
Hey.
I can go now.
Okay.
No, I'll go.
Hey y'all, my name is Ola Ashimare. My pronouns are they and she. And I don't know, I'm really excited for this panel. I normally don't get to talk on it, so I have like so much to say. I've been holding on for 3 years. So let's get started. Cleo.
Hi everyone. My name is Cleo Tadina. Pronouns she, her, hers. I am a Black queer trans woman and a community organizer with Citizen Action New York.
Yes. Let's give it up for the panelists. And as your moderator today, it's me. It's Sun, she, her pronouns. I am an artivist, organizer, activist, entrepreneur, creative, all the things. And so today, right, uplifting voices of Black queer feminists. Black queer feminist has influenced our history by experiences, advocacy, stories, art, labor, and so much more, while defying oppression. Charlene Carruthers, in simple form, describes Black queer feminists as a way to transform the way we do our work for the sake of collective liberation. So, kicking this conversation off, and this is a conversation, so feel free to, if there's not a question, just jump right in there and share what's on your mind and your heart, okay? So, first, starting off, I would just like to get you all to define, describe what it means, what it looks like, what it feels like to be a Black queer feminist. Take the mic.
I want to go. I'll
Okay,
go.
3 years, because you've been holding back. Let's go.
Because, I've been holding back. And so I'll start with the individual because, I had to get me here first. And so for me personally, Black queer feminism has been a tool to love on and break through some of the things that I did not realize that were deeply set within me around racism and patriarchy and all the tools of oppression that we all have been socialized into. But Black queer feminism was that broke that last stronghold of how those things showed up in me and my body, how I treated myself, the things I ate, the people that I would surround myself with, the people I loved in my friendships and in my intimate relationships, how I parent and love on my son, and all those things. And I would say for me being an organizer, a creator, a facilitator, a trainer, a teacher, and again, a mama, for the collective Black queer feminism, again, has been a tool to know that I need to uplift and support Black and brown trans women, fat bodies, all these kinds of things that we shied away from. Just being able to say period, but a menstrual cycle period, right? Like just to be able to have those conversations for everyone. Black queer feminism has been a tool to be able to do that in a collective and do some collective healing in a moment.
Period.
And period.
Thank you. I like how you started that off with, talking about yourself, and then, you moved to, I worked on myself, so then I can now go work towards collective liberation. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll speak about it from an analysis perspective of like how we do this work and how we show up. I think for me, Black queer feminism was the first like sort of analysis or ideology around organizing that I've like read and felt comfortable in as an Afro-Boricua trans woman, right? It was one of the first analysis where I was like, oh, I see myself here clearly, right? Where in other analysis around like socialism or communism or Marxism, I never felt fully comfortable as a Afro-Boricua trans woman, but here we are with Black queer feminism, and I'm like, oh, these my people, like I belong here, right? And I think it's an analysis that really pushes us to center the voices of folks that are often not centered in this work. And also, in my opinion, one of the only analysis that will get us to true liberation for our community.
Yes.
Well, I think that Johnny said I hit it on the nail, to be quite honest. I don't think anything I can say could like hit that even close. But honestly, when I first came into organizing, I came in through, watching and reading things about bell hooks and, Angela Davis, my love, like she's just an icon to me. And reading their synopsis and their ideas and just saying, this is the first part of in the movement where I feel like we've actually had conversations where we've actually included everyone in our intersectionalities. Where as a Black Latina trans woman, it's like you come into the spaces and we're all talking about organizing, but we don't sometimes talk about the intersectionalities that occur in between them and the in-between spaces where people lie. And so I think that it it's an amazing conversation starter as well. I think, you know, when you're at the dinner table, I always love to be like, so what do y'all think about Black queer feminism? What do y'all think about Miss Bell Hooks and her readings? Um, and so I think it's just an amazing way to start, especially in organizing.
Okay, so foundation for organizing, inclusiveness, and all the things, right? And so you mentioned Bell Hooks and Angela Davis. Tell me, so who are you reading? Like, who are the people that you look up to? You know, Black queer feminists or just feminists? Your leaders, your icons, your mothers, your aunties, your cousins. Like, what's on the shelf? What's in front of you?
I think for me, modern day, I'm thinking of the Patrice Cullors. I'm thinking of the Adrienne Marie Browns. And I just also think that the communication piece that I'm gonna butcher their name, but I'm gonna say it anyways. That the Combahee River Collective,
Combahee River Collective.
the communication piece that they put out around what is Black queer feminism is like spectacular, right? And like how it breaks down how Black queer feminism fits into economics, social justice, and politics, and sort of like how we operate and exist with each other. I think those are writers and pieces of reading that I like really look forward to.
Yeah, same. I want to cite everyone that Janice just spoke of. I will also shout out AK Press. Like, if you're looking to follow someone who just create a publishing company that just creates Black queer feminist books where you can kind of feel safe to go up there and kind of like read everything. AK Press, which is the publisher of all of Adrienne Marie Brown's books. I also want to add in Marie Kaba, because like when we talk about Black queer feminism, it's intersectional, right? Like, you don't have to be Black, you don't have to be queer, you don't have to be a woman or a femme to be a Black queer feminist. And I will also amend that and add in, and I have been being more intentional of adding in and naming myself a Black queer trans feminist, because in order to be inclusive of my non-binary identities, my daughters who are on this panel, their identities of trans women, my best friend who is the moderator on this panel, to hold space for her Black queer womanhood, I have to be inclusive of everyone. And so I find not only in the books of these folks, but I also follow them. I also encourage folks who are not major readers to follow these folks online, go to their trainings. I went to some BOLD trainings and things like that, which stands for Black Organizing for Leadership and Dignity. And so that is steeped in Black queer feminism. And so it's a whole bunch of books. I will also say Angela Davis, like whose mother is that not, when she's still writing forwards on everyone's books. I want to share, I just picked up a book, Reproductive Justice. I forgot who wrote that book, but JC introduced me to that book. JC is our deputy director at New Haven Pride Center, who has worked in reproductive justice for a long time before coming into the center. And so I would start from there. Bell Hooks, Angela Davis, Adrienne Marie Brown. On AK Press, there's a book about whales. Oh, Drowning. If you're really trying to understand and have a kind of a quick read, but that's equally as deep as a 700-page novel, I would start with Drowning. It studies nature and whales and what's happening in the marine systems, and how women and women mammals are the ones that cultivate and take care of our ecosystem, and how that directly can translate to what in the ecosystem that we have here on land with people. And so those are some of the books. Marie Kaba, Transformational Justice, right? Adrienne Marie Brown, Drowning. I apologize for forgetting the author of that book, but the name is Drowning. I will also read Anarcho Blackness by Darius B. Who else? All the things.
Yeah, there's so many authors. So
Yeah. Start from there.
we just gave y'all a list. Go Google, follow folks online, get on their Instagram, and get all the education, knowledge, and all the things that you need. And so, Ala, you mentioned when we were talking about, the mothers and aunties and all the readings about reproductive justice. So, what takes me into a question that I had, right? With all the fight that's going on for reproductive justice, right? Fighting for access and health services, the allocation of resources, right? Power, control over our bodies, all the things that entails. How do you see yourself in this fight? And also, if you have any, projects around it, if you're mobilizing, how do you see yourself in this fight? Anyone?
I actually would like to go. So I, recently when Roe v. Wade was overturned, I went to the two big rallies that occurred in New York. And, I was there protesting the overturnment of Roe v. Wade, and I was looking around and I was listening to many of the speakers, and I didn't see a single person that looked like me. I did see Black women, but I didn't see Black trans women, and that's where I make the separation, right? Where I think a major problem that right now that it's occurring when we're talking about women's rights and the overturnment of Roe v. Wade, we're also forgetting that it's not just abortion rights that have gone away either. It's the rights of many people down south who use Planned Parenthood as a means to be able to get affordable hormones, affordable treatments, right? People who have underlying issues who want to go get sonograms. And so there's so many that small percentage of folks that aren't represented in our movements. And, I know that it was Sojourner Truth that had spoke about this in a big convention when the women's rights movement just first came about. And she talked about how we don't address the intersectionality of the issues that Black women face, one, and also the issues of that trans women face, right? And so I feel like when we come into these spaces and we talk about the feminist movements and the women's rights movement, we completely walk over a complete large percentage of the folks that have been leading the charge, right? People like Marsha P. Johnson, people like Bell Hooks, people like Angela Davis, all these amazing figures that have been leading the charge in this movement. And where it's like we got white women just at the front of the gates, like this is a women's right, abortion rights issue, but it's not just that. Right. It's an all women and all intersectionality issue, and all these folks that have been affected by this, unfortunately. So when asked like, where do I see myself? I find it very difficult to see myself in these spaces, which is why I feel like people like me, Johnny, Salah, are in these spaces right now, making ourselves be that picture for other folks that come after us.
Yeah, I think the reproductive rights movement is in a very crucial point in its history right now, right? With the overturning of Roe v. Wade, there's so much work that has to get done, right? And the reality is that if we want to be 100% honest about it, Black women, Black queer women have been laying the groundwork for the work of reproductive rights and reproductive justice for years now, right? And at the same time, their voices have been completely left out from national conversations, right? Because we aren't talking about the mortality birth rate that happens within Black women and the Black community, right? We aren't talking about Black trans men and their ability to also be included in the conversation when it comes to reproductive justice. So I think this is where the analysis of like Black queer feminism is needed and necessary, right? Because when you don't have an analysis that's rooted in Black queer feminism, you leave so many people out of the conversation, and then we never get to the place of building true movement and people power, because what we end up doing is pushing people away from our movements, right? I think of the Women's March, right? Where a lot of Black and Brown and Indigenous women did not feel comfortable showing up to the Women's March because it wasn't a space created by us and for us, right? And at the very least, even on our local level, right, there wasn't Black and Brown women sort of leading the charge to sort of plan, right? And in reality, truly, I don't think anyone ever understood what the Women's March was really trying to get at. But, you know, I think the analysis, when we're lacking the analysis, we leave so many people out, and folks really just disengage from our work, right? And it's dangerous when folks are disengaging because we get nowhere.
Mm.
Yes, yes. To speak to that, I laughed so hard when you said that, because Son and I went to the Women's March in Connecticut, and we were standing around in the thing, and we was like, "What's happening?" Like, we kept like checking in on each other, like, "Are you okay?" And we, "Girl, I don't know, another pussy hat walking by." Like, it was really unaffirming. But in this moment, these years later, it's affirming, because, right, like, y'all were younger, y'all were in school when we was there showing up for us, right? Like, we showed up for us. And when we were in that crowd, like, literally in real time, we were like, knowing that we wanted to not be there, but knowing that we had to stay there for the continuum from the beginning to the end, because we needed folks the younger folks that, you know, they hired dancers and stuff, and young Black girls to come and show up and entertain these white women with their pink pussy hats. But we needed them to see us in the forefront, to be like, "Little sis, like, you're doing this," like, we connecting. We was screaming and made ourselves go hoarse and followed them and made sure that they saw us the whole time, because it was literally just us two. And it was a couple of other Black women there. And it was literally a couple of other Black women there. And none of us were holding leadership positions in that march. However, we were all organizers and leaders, and have been in the news, and have been on and known, and to that we were Black queer women who were working around all justice work in Connecticut. So to be left out intentionally, and then to go into that space and witness the cognitive dissonance that oftentimes Black queer and Black women face going into spaces of just feminist spaces without the intentionality of being Black queer trans feminist spaces. Those are some of the most violent spaces that I have ever experienced in organizing, when I'm trying to enter into partnership with folks who are in long-standing institutions, and knowing that we're, you know, grassroots. We have to unfortunately go to them because we're grassroots, and then walking into those spaces and experiencing some of the most emotional and educational, you know, like, what school did you go to, and you don't have a degree, and I'm like, "Bitch, we organizing. What are you talking about? Like, I still could run you down. You can't even come into New Haven and walk down the street, okay? Like, you're scared of me outside of this space, but you got your sorority sisters are behind you, and so you're good right now." Like, so, and those spaces could be multiracial spaces, but what I'm saying is they're white feminist spaces. So take from that what you will. But it was just so funny. Like, I screamed, the scream that I scrumped, Johnny's, when you said that.
That I scrump.
The scream that I scrumped.
And I'll just add, like, you know, I think so. I ended up going to the one in New York City instead of going to the one in Connecticut for the Women's March the first year. One, because it's New York. But to the piece that you talked about, right? Like, we will make space for ourselves, right? Regardless of whether you include us in it or not, we will find ourselves and make community within your community, right? But I remember the train ride back, we had a very long conversation with folks around, and mind you, the train ride was like super packed coming back into Connecticut. It was just crazy. But we were talking about how, like, if your feminism does not include trans women, your feminism is trash, right? Exclusionary feminism.
Black trans women.
Exclusionary feminism is not feminism at all, right? And I think it's a conversation that needs to be had.
Definitely. Thank you all
Right.
for that.
Yeah. Just adding that exclusionary feminism is really turfy, and that's one period. So like at what point do you want to just become a white man? Just say that. If you want to be a white man, just say that.
And there's that. So, with feeling left out and not seen or heard, right, or there aren't spaces for you, tell folks what are things that they can do to build solidarity around Black queer feminism?
Pay us and get out of our way. Give us if you can't give us money, because we know all white folks don't have money, but y'all have wealth in other ways. So if you have a beautiful house with a nice backyard and that has a driveway, let us come and do our retreats, our day retreats there. If you have a shout out to Possible Futures in New Haven, because Lauren, if you ever want to know like what it looks like to be a white woman and really be about Black queer trans feminism, just go talk to Lauren, buy a couple of books, tell her we sent you, any one of us. But do things like that. If you have an establishment, give us a room. Maybe you can't do it all day or every day, but is there 3 or 4 weekends or days out the month where you're not using it, or evenings where you can allow organizing spaces, book clubs? Like, don't just go for the organizers, right? Like, just come to the Pride Center and be like, oh, hey, like, I have this space. We'll give you a key. Do what you want. Clean up after yourself. Take out the trash, and you're good. And pay us money. Hire us. I would say that. Like, did Christians say? Like, give Jesus a fish, and did Jesus will make a bottle of wine or something?
No,
like
no, that's not.
I'm not a Christian, but what I'm just saying is, like, if you bring it to water, it will drink or something. All I'm just saying is give us the ability to and step out of our way and let us do what we need to do. You know what I mean? Like, folks often forget that white privilege doesn't just look like being able to go home and make it safe, without worrying about police. White privilege also looks like knowing that you have 3 or 4 and 5 family friends who have homes and beautiful backyards that are in New Haven and in Hampden and in West Hartford and in Meriden and in Willimantic, and that we need the space to even figure out what it is that we need to do. And so give us the space, give us the money. Don't just bring us your little casseroles. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't just pay us during Black History Month. Pay us or in June. You know what I mean? Pay us in January. Do susus. Get in touch with Farron. They out here doing susus and equitable susus. Like, step into economic allotment. Like, find ways to give out money. We all get tax returns. Like, you get to donate it. You get to write that off. Like, there are all kinds of things that will allow you to also get something. It's not just a one-end transaction, but even if it is, and you're just giving us something, you get the ability to go in your white spaces and be like, oh, we give the Black gays this thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, do whatever it is you need to do and seek your payment, however it is that you need to seek your payment. But I would say, firstly and foremost, give us the spaces and get out our way. Do the fundraisers on your own and bring us the money and get out our way. And don't ask us to do a bunch of reports and grant reporting. Don't give us the grant, give us the money.
Pay, yes. Resources, spaces. I hear you. Janice?
Yeah, I think this is where I love to say I'm not looking for allies. I'm looking for co-conspirators, right? I'm looking for folks who have done the work of unlearning and relearning, right? And that's never ending, right? That we are always unlearning and relearning. I've been doing this work for 10 years now, and there is still stuff that I have to unlearn, and Allah could tell you that. But yeah, this is where we look for co-conspirators, right? Like, it's not just you seen the one Black woman in the all-white staff meeting talking about how something was like wrong and problematic, and then you see her in the hallway and you're like, hey, I support what you said. Like, no, you should have supported her vocally in that room, right? Instead of waiting to get into the hallway and say, hey, I agree with what you said, right? I think it's about being visible co-conspirators to folks in our community, instead of waiting until no one's around to say, you have my full support.
Or waiting until something happens and it's like, oh, I want to support.
Yeah.
There's always time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a space where, so the nonprofit jargon would be step up, step back. But personally, in a more informal way, just shut the fuck up. Because we have a lot of, self-proclaimed feminists that, you're taking up too much space. You're not giving space to the people who really are supposed to be in those spaces, right? You want to call yourself a Black queer feminist? Okay, that's fine. Call yourself that all you want, but you actually need to be about it, right? And you need to also put the spotlight on actually true Black queer trans women and Black queer women in general, period, that are experiencing these experiences and live this life, right? And center those voices, right? And like Janice and Allah have said, really do the work, right? Be co-conspirators. But also don't try to buddy up on me if you're not really trying to be all about me when it's time to be all about me. Right? I think it's very important that, we name that there's many people that are in these spaces and in these organizing realms that are like, oh yes, I'm for it. Yes, BLM. Yes, gay love. Yes, this. Mama, you're just trying to collect a paycheck. And so, and that's the sad truth of many folks, right? And
Seriously.
so, if you're really gonna be about it and you're really gonna be doing the work, then let's do that. Let's center these voices and let's center these experiences. And when we're talking about these issues, don't say, oh yeah, my friend. No, you need to go and pay your friend and tell her, here's some money. You can sit on a panel and you can tell your story.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Right? So that's where I'm at. It's really take a step up, take a step back. Period.
Period. Y'all heard it here. What you can do to build solidarity. Step up.
Oh, can I just add one thing, son?
Absolutely.
I will also say, think about what the intersections of like anti-oppression and anti-racism work look like for you, and how they show up for you. Because I really, I'm really struggling. I'm understanding when straight white people act the way that they act, right? Like the system is made for you, right? But when you step out of that small binary of straight white people, like, and you step into any other intersections in the world, whether that's being fat, whether that's being poor, whether that's being differently able, whether that's being an intersection of any of those, whether that's being queer or trans or non-binary or however it is that steps outside of those margins, right? Like, and you are thinking that you have a piece of the analysis, and so because you have experienced an oppression, that you think that your oppression looks like ours, whereas there are still many intersections of privilege for you. Even us on this panel have intersections of privilege. And so I would say, do the work of connecting everything that you're saying that you want to do and everything that you want to do to what you're actively doing. And if you can't do the big thing yet, what does it look like to take the step, but take the step every day? And that is what anti-racism and anti-oppression work, because I'm really tired of white people, like really, like Cleo said, like really out here, you tricking me. I'm thinking you doing it, and we now 3 years later we in a project and you don't want to do no work, and you a whole ass white woman. Like, what? Like, you have mad privileges, and you want the Black queer people to do all the work because we know how, instead of you holding your space. And it's like, that is where you can show up knowing that as Black queer women and Black queer trans women or Black queer trans people, we are automatically doing more than what you ever can see. And so it is up to you to do more and let me see that shit. Now it's time for you to prove your worth in this world to me instead of vice versa. And there's nothing wrong with that, because again, you riding the coattails of Black queer women, you getting to be the white woman, or you getting to be the straight person that's the co-conspirator. You still get more than us, because the world will always want to go to you first. And so they'll always look at us second, even when you're talking about things that directly relate to us. So I really struggle, and I really with folks who are using trending language and understand the definitions and can say they have the analysis, but when it's time to do the work, where it's really simple, like you send the email, you send it, you write it, you send it. Send it to me, I'll edit it for you if it's really that big. But if you've been doing this for 15 years, you don't know how to send an email? Like, think about what you're saying slowly, say less, give out the information, and send the email. Because I'm over here trying to survive, and literally every day, I like it's hard. So I would say that as well, all the things we said, but also like, where is your anti-oppression work showing up, and not just your work, but how are you connecting it to your individual lives and making sure you're doing that work, so we're still not doing more labor for you.
Does anyone want to add anything that like just summed it all up? Thank you all. So with all that was said, so how do we live in our full dignity and our wholeness as Black, queer, trans, femme? How are we showing up in community? Like, give it to me. Tell me what that is for you. How are we showing up? How are we living in our fullness?
Yeah, I think for me, it's showing up as my full self in every space I enter. One, right? Not neglecting a piece of my identity or feeling like I have to code switch because I'm in a space. Though I can code switch very well. And I can't preach about liberation, and I'm also showing up in spaces and sort of choosing and picking what parts of my identity show up with me. So I think that's one, right? And two, centering myself and centering my fellow Black trans women, fellow Black women, fellow Black queer women specifically, right? In spaces where I know we're often not centered. And if I have access to a space that my sisters do not have access to make sure that in that space I am mentioning my sisters and making sure that I'm bringing them into the conversation.
Absolutely.
It is my duty and my responsibility to make sure that in spaces where we're often not let into, and if I have access, I'm making sure I'm not the first one at the table and definitely not the last.
Yeah, that's crazy that this is one of the questions. Because I do this weird thing where when I'm walking, I pretend like I'm in a short film.
Okay, every day is a movie. Let's
No,
go.
listen. I'm telling everybody, y'all need to start moving like that, because look, the way you end up starting loving yourself. But earlier today I was thinking, right, and because I was being catcalled by this guy, and right after I started thinking, and I'm like, what is it that I'm attracting, blah blah blah, whatever, right? And so how is it that I'm coming into spaces? And so I started thinking, I'm like, as a Black Latina trans woman, I've gone through 5 stages of grief. I've gone through my denial, I've gone through my bargaining, I've gone through my depression, I've gone through my anger, and now I feel like I've hit a stage of acceptance with myself and who I am and my identities, where I'm now able to say that I am comfortably being myself and being expressive of my identities and being expressive of my thoughts, but also being able to say no when I feel like saying no, and being able to say yes when I feel inclined to say yes, because there's a power in that. And so when we learn to say yes and no, and we learn to take up space and take respect for ourselves, I feel like that's just the most beautiful thing that as Black queer feminists that we can do, to take up and own up our spaces.
And that's powerful, right?
Mm-hmm. I would say everything that has been said already. I would also say, you know, I have come to the conclusion that I have to let lame people do the lame shit that they gonna fucking do. And I mean that I wanted all like that to come out. Because in order to change and work in transformation, I have to not focus on the individual and focus on the content, like focus on the people who want to heal. Continue to making containers for people who want these containers. And knowing that it's way easier to stay oppressed than it is to break out of chains, because the chains are already there, right? Like you got to create new tools, you got to get bloody, you got to like go through things. And so I've learned to find my tribe, my community. I've learned to, like Cleo said, I've learned to say no, and I've learned to say yes. And there is a power in the difference. Like, you know, sometimes first it start off, I can say no more, but like I've been allowing myself to do and apply for positions I never would have applied to, like just believing in myself. Like I'm fitting to go on this vacation. I'm about to save up $25 every time I get paid because I'm going, right? Like I'm gonna go and walk around and hug trees, and every time someone there is a collective response to the oppression and trauma of Black people and Black queer people, I'm going to sit for a second and think if I really truly have the capacity to be the leader in this moment. Because I have to look into a space of abundance, like abundance. It's enough of us fighting this battle right now. It's not just me anymore. It's not just us 4 plus 3 more people that ain't on the panel and that's it, right? Like that have this analysis, that are Black, queer, trans people. I have to continue to create educational and spaces for young gabies so that they can be like feel seen younger, like so they could be 14 and being in spaces where there are the only leaders in the spaces are Black queer women and Black trans women, Black and brown trans, like those is the creators and the folks who have built the seeds, and we did all of it. We did the work and told the garden, but then also got to reap the benefits and the fruits. I've also learned to start telling people to pay me. Every time you see me, I know y'all used to it, I'd be like, give us your money, right? That was trauma for me, to tell people to check in if my paychecks wasn't on time, even though I knew I was supposed to get paid on Friday, and here it's Wednesday and I still didn't get paid. Like I used to have to be of that lived experience. So to be able to say, hey, no, you have to pay me. Or this is consulting, like, no, I'm not going to let you pick my brain for an hour and then you go and build 4 fucking programs off of my brain that you picked for an hour. I'm going to charge you my fee, and then I'm still going to tell you what you should do. And if you want to do it and you want me to do it, you still got to pay me a separate fee, because like, that's just what it is. I know my worth. As DJ Khaled says, yesterday prices ain't today's prices. Is going up every day. And so if you want to get into that space, you have to believe that sometimes you gotta fake it till you make it, knowing that it is truly there. But the world has sequestered us into such oppression that we honestly believe that we don't deserve liberation. And so what it shows up in our communities is the belief that we will never break out of these systems of oppression. And I firmly believe that even in my lifetime, I will be able to see some of the fruits of my labor of this work, as opposed to saying the age-old additive that organizers say, that I'm doing this work even though I know that I will never see it. Nah, fuck that. I'm going to do this work for the future, but I'm also going to do some right now work so I can see what liberation looks like for me now. So in the moments where y'all have tried to squash me, where y'all have pushed me out of spaces, where I'm thinking of, oh shoot, my paycheck, is this going to happen? In those spaces, how I get up and put on my best fit and put on my cutest glasses and show up in that space anyway and continue to take it over is knowing that this right here is beneficial to me and my family, and for my family members who I will never know their names because I will be their ancestor. And so that is something that we don't, Black queer women, we don't say that. We're not that bold to say, hey, nah, I'm gonna experience liberation right now, and I'm making sure that my family and the family members that I don't know get to experience liberation as well. And that is what Black queer trans feminism has gifted me, the ability to do that and say that unapologetically.
No, definitely. Like, yes, I hear all that. And that's why for me, I've been like, nah, it's all about joy. It's about liberation. All the no's, I'm laying, I'm not doing nothing. I can't show up. Like, it's me first. Yes, I'm thinking of the collective community, but I got to make sure I'm well. And yes, I do want to see liberation. Cleo, were you going to say something?
Oh, yes. Sorry, my camera just keeps cutting off.
It's all right. Go ahead.
But I wanted to say something that, kept just coming into my head, which was we all as Black queer women we come into these spaces and we feel like we owe people things. And I think that now, right in here in this moment, as the four empowering and amazing women that we are, it's time that we start saying, no, you owe us. Because it's been Black trans bodies, Black femmes, Black women who have been the bodies that have been on the front lines of this movement. It has been trans bodies that have been the burial ground in which white gay men have gotten their rights over, right? No shade, no shade, right? And so I feel like we come into these spaces, I'm a baby doll, right? And in my inception, in my conceivement, I thought I owe people an explanation as to who I am and as to my experience and as to my story. But now that I live alone, I pay my own bills, I have my own big girl job, and I'm doing all these things, and I'm, trying to make the world better for myself and maybe my kids in the future if I decide to have them. I don't know. I'm like, I don't owe no one an explanation. I don't know anybody a come out story. I don't owe anybody, this is who I am. All I'm going to give you is, hi, my name is Phil Davina, pronouns she, her. I am a community organizer full time. I've been doing this work for a very long time. Pay me what I'm worth, because you owe me, right? You owe us. And so I feel like as Black women, we're constantly put in places where they make us feel like we owe them, or that we're in some way indebted to them to get off of them some explanation as to what it is that we're doing and what our movement is. In reality, that's not true whatsoever. So I just wanted to say that, period.
No, yes, thank you for that. And I think with, again, right, being erased, or folks thinking that we're invisible and all the things, that's why oftentimes we show up that way, thinking we have to explain or give more, but you the way you are is just enough. And no, people don't need a coming out story and all the other things. Take me for who I am. This is what it is. And yeah, that's it. And so we are coming close to an end, unfortunately. And so I just want to wrap up with, or maybe we could get 2 questions in, but this next question, because we talked about it a little bit, if you want to go more in depth with it, right? So Black, queer, trans, right, women, femme, right, we deserve love, joy, luxury, spaces of healing, self-care. what are you doing to take care of yourself? What trips are you taking? What bags are you buying yourself, right? What new nail polish books you're reading, you know, meditation, yoga. What are some of the things that you are embodying? What are the things that you're doing? And also that you invite other folks to do, you know, while organizing, while just existing, right? Because it's so much. So what is it that you would tell folks to do and how to take care of themselves?
Can I start with this one? I'm gonna just do this. These nails, okay? These nails, and it's not a flex. They cost $100, but these nails right here. When I started getting, you know, paid, this was the first thing I got. I got my nails done. Getting my hair braided. Although right now I have a short little curly hair pixie cut, but doing my hair is such a beautiful spiritual experience for me. Where feeling, you know, because I don't just feel other Black women touching my hair. I feel all of the Black women in my lineage touching my hair. Like, I just feel that, right? And also going out and buying myself clothes. It's like so odd. Like, the things that I, you know, growing up was like, okay, it's whatever, it's clothes, it's nails, whatever. Now I'm like, wow, this is so amazing, right? Being able to buy my clothes and being able to, you know, express myself through clothing and fashion, being able to buy jewelry, being able to have hoops, being able to get some crystals, being able to get a little cute toe bag, because I love me a cute toe. Ooh, a cute toe. And I love a good bag. And I love a good bag. So if anyone wants to buy me anything for my birthday, October 16th.
Love that.
I would second everything that Cleo said. You know, I'm a mom, so I gotta, you know, I have to do that first. But I'm also a privileged mother where I have family who has means, and so although my son is in college and I'm helping pay tuition, I'm paying like 1%, y'all. And so, and I'm proud of that. You know what I mean? I'm proud that my son, so that gift. So I, you know, I do things like my wife and I, because I'm a wife, right? Like my wife and I, we do things, we take care of each other, like um we do the thing, right? Like if we want to go places, we go there. Like I say, book the trip, sis, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like book the trip, go by yourself, go on and like try one friend, but if they acting funky or they can't do it the first time, baby, go on IG, book, go Black, queer, trans, solo travelers. It's a whole bunch of hashtags. They give all kind of trips. Book the trip, go beautiful places, like, you know, like America has colonized mad other people countries, and so there's all kinds of spaces that you could get to without a passport, mad islands you can go to, you know, like go, don't just go to Georgia or Florida, drive to Cali, like, you know what I mean, do what you got to do, book the train trip, put the $5 away every month, like bet on you first. um like do the things that you want first, like, you know, they shame Black people by telling us like when we want like nice things that it's because of something that we leading into from enslavement days. But no, like we want nice things because everybody wants nice things. We come from a lineage of creating and mining those nice things first. So that stuff is encoded on our DNA. Don't feel shame. Like, you know, there's all kinds of things that teach you how to thrift. You can go to Target. You could ball out, a good ball out on Target with a rainbow mix, baby. Okay, some of that stuff Cardi B be wearing. So like you out here, you could be trending just like everyone else. But I would say take care of your skin, drink lots of water, like take care of you first. And then forget everybody else, right? And if there's a part of your body or something that you don't like where you're experiencing a disconnect with, like first check and make sure, is it something that's based in like health, like do you have a fatter body and you know that you want to run and so you starting to get out of breath faster, like yes, maybe lose 5 pounds. But if you're like, oh, I'm a size 14 and everyone's telling me that I'm fat, I think that I'm fat, like girl, go eat you a Sunday, take a walk, and go to Blue Mercury and get you some skincare, because you're I want to be a 14 again, like, you know what I mean? So like, just like, you know, make sure that you remove oppression out of the mirror after you take that first glimpse and you look at it and it's like, oh, my body isn't this, or I'm this. Like, after you do that, that's valid or whatever. Remove oppression. And what do you have? What privileges do you have? Are your lips juicy? Like, girl, put some lipstick on. Like, do what you gotta do to find the things that you love about you. Book the trip, save a couple of dollars for the trip, go by yourself, Google and make sure that space is safe for, like, you know, queer people and stuff first. You know what I'm saying? Especially Black queer people. But there's a multitude of spaces now. TikTok, Instagram, there's a bunch of people who are doing it for us so that we can just go where they go. And you don't got to put everything on social media. Post the pictures 3 months later. Like, you know, keep them guessing.
Yeah, I think removing that oppression mentality is such a big piece, right? And especially for so long, Black and brown women, specifically Black trans women, right, Black queer women, have been forced to sort of be in this sort of like survival mentality, right, where we haven't gotten to the place as a whole and as a community where we're thriving and like really just living our best lives, right, or in our favorite versions of ourselves, right. And I think this year I've sort of been able to just see that a bit more, where like I'm seeing Black women in yachts and Black women's flying first class and like doing their things, right, which to me, like, that's amazing and beautiful, right. And I think it does require us to step out of this sort of like deficit mentality and really step into a mentality of like, I'm putting myself first, I'm putting my joy first, because I do deserve all the riches and luxuries of this world, because I am that girl, right? I am the top doll. Therefore, I'm going to give myself all of this, right? And you know, it's a space I've sort of been leading into more. And Allah will tell you, I came back from Miami and 2 days later was on another flight. Gotta go. See y'all.
That's how you do it.
And it's okay to do that, right? And allow ourselves to really experience joy, right. And I think those of us who are on the ground and on the front lines, like, we especially need to allow ourselves to feel that, because a lot of the work we do is emotionally draining. And we carry a lot, right. And I think it's okay to allow ourselves to lean into that.
Thank you. So we are at time. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for sharing. This was amazing. Thank you. And I just want to run it back one time. What Allah said: remove oppression out the mirror. Just wake up and be your full self. Love on yourself, whatever that may look like, right? If your lips chapped, like she said, you know, just add some lip gloss, some Carmex, you know, buy yourself something, make yourself feel good, because you are deserving, you are everything, you are beautiful. Just remove the oppression out the mirror and look at yourself with a full, clear lens, because you are all that. And so I just want to end with repeating after me. Y'all ready? Yeah. So we just got real quick, right? Simple. We gonna be all right.
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 Thank you all again for joining this Black queer feminist conversation with us today. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, all of you. Sun, particularly your moderation is always so incredible. This was such an amazing conversation. I enjoyed every second of listening to all four of you, incredible humans, women, Black, queer, trans feminists, speaking and showing your truths, and really ensuring that all of us are better comrades, better allies, better everything that we can be, co-conspirators, to use Janice's term, in the work that needs to continue to happen around anti-racism work within our community and beyond. So thank you all. And as a final reminder, we have many more things to do this week for Pride New Haven. So please join us for the whole schedule. you will see, I think, almost every person, if not every person, on this again before it's over. So thank you all, and have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Send the price into your money. Send us your money.